I'm really grateful for this opportunity to talk a little bit about my mom. Her name's Mary. In February, she turned 92, so I've been blessed to have my mother long enough to grow up and to have her see our children grow up. My sons are young adults, 20 and 23, and they've known their grandmother all their lives. It's pretty special. Whenever I think about my mom, I think of her as the kindest woman I know, the best theologian I know, and maybe the bravest woman that I know. I'm remembering when I was 10 years old and growing up in a ghetto on the south side of Chicago and going to Catholic schools and having the nuns tell my mother that they couldn't challenge me anymore and that it would be great if I could find a better school. And my mother was talking about it with the caseworker who handled our case because we grew up on welfare. And this caseworker, who I've never seen again and wish I could to thank her, went looking for a school that might be better for me and found a fancy private school on the north side of Chicago that had scholarships. And so my mother basically told me to do my best while I was filling out the application forms. She couldn't fill them out because they were too complicated. And she had only gone to the 3rd grade, even though she taught me how to read by putting the alphabet on pieces of cardboard and going over them with me when I was a little girl, so that by the time I got to school I already knew how to read. But these forms were more complicated than she could do, and so I filled them out. And then she told me to do my best as I took the test for the school, and I did that. I didn't pay much attention to who was in the room with me, or I might have been less surprised when I was ultimately admitted to the school, which was a cause for great rejoicing in our household. It was a sign of honor for the family, in a family where education was so important, because my parents didn't really have an education, and it was something they wanted very much for us. My mother took me to the school on the first day, and it was an hour ride from where we lived, and she told me to pay attention because I was going to have to do it by myself after that day, and I had to learn all the ways to transfer and what to ask for and what stop to get off of. And for a 10, almost 11-year-old girl, that was pretty complicated. But what was even more complicated was walking up the stairs and looking through the big windows into the front hall of the school where all the students assembled on the first day, and realizing that the vast majority of them were white. It had never occurred to me, and I had never been around that many white people in my life. And it was the 60s, and what I knew about white people mostly involved guns and fire hoses and dogs from television. So I was afraid they were going to kill me. My mother took my hand and said, "Girl, get in there and get an education." And she walked with me through the front door, and the bell rang, and I went downstairs with the other kids, and she said she'd be waiting for me when I came back upstairs. My mother's always done that. She's always pushed me to do things I was afraid to do. By the time I was ready to go to college, I was really excited about leaving home, and my whole family took me to the airport, and I'd never been on a plane before, and I flew to New York on my way to New Haven because I was going to Yale. And I was fine all the while I was traveling there, but by the time I'd been there a few days, I was homesick and I wanted to come back. And so by the time it had been about a week, I called home. And I couldn't talk really long because it was really expensive to talk on the phone then. There was no internet or cell phones. And when I called, I was kind of crying. And my father said that I didn't have to stay at that school, and that if I wanted to come home, I could come home. And I understood that because he didn't want me to go. But my mother took the phone, and she was really clear. She said, there's nothing for you in Chicago. You need to get an education and get out of here and stay out of here. Stop all that crying and go to a library. Go study somewhere and go be somebody. So I did. She's pretty proud of me. She loves that I was a writer for years and that I became a minister, and now I'm a seminary president. And I think that makes her happiest because I'm a teacher. And a teacher was something she really wanted to be and never could be. So the idea that her oldest daughter is now helping other people learn, I think makes her very happy. Thank you for letting me talk about Mary. She is an extraordinary woman, and I am blessed to have had her as my mother.